Hello and welcome. Welcome to this ever present and ever loving now moment. It has been quite some time since I've made a recording on my own, and there have been quite a significant shift that has allowed me to integrate on a very, very deep level as I've not only deepened in my remembrance of my cosmic codex within the greater cosmic body of creation, but also how that is woven through and as the cosmic codex of Gaia as a true earth reflection of our innate nature, and that through the very crystalline cosmic codex of my being, and those three weaving and breathing as one. And I was guided to share the key codes that has supported me to move into that moment. And this, which I'm going to share now, is a reflection of being held, a story of true love, or even the true story of love. I have, since I've started this channel, which is more or less a year ago, have gradually been guided to anchor some key shifts that has occurred. And I've always started with when I've received this vision of my being. And that was in 2020. However, over this last few weeks, I have moved into a very deep remembrance of when exactly my ascension and embodiment has started. And that was in 2004. And as I remembered that, I realized how perfectly synchronized every moment of remembrance and the deepening of that remembrance is, so that we can gradually be a witness to, while simultaneously experiencing, how all different aspects of all that we are weaves together in this perfect cosmic symphony, this synthesis that is always in every moment weaving and breathing through us, eternally so. And let me take you back to 2004. At that moment in my life experience, I have been working, and I'm going to use different languages for a very specific reason. I've been working in the corporate world, part of a identity, a role, a storyline that I've created as a soul for me to have different experiences, as I knew that each one of those aspects are weaving something into being. And during those years, there was a lot of exhaustion that has taken place, and therefore I had this yearning to continuously connect with nature. However, where I was staying at that time, and this was the year before I met my husband, I was staying in a complex where people was staying above me and to both sides throughout the whole cosmos, throughout the whole complex. And I only had this small little piece of grass. And during those times that I was staying there, this deep exhaustion that came over me on weekends, where I wanted to just connect to nature. And as I was sitting next to this piece of grass on my small little patio, I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, seemingly out of the blue, I noticed this experience within myself. And I wanted to say I felt it, but it wasn't a felt experience. It was an experience of seeing and knowing exactly what I was experiencing. And so my eyes was closed, trying to allow for internal silence to move through my being. And as I felt and saw this experience within me, it felt like an explosion, but the most softest, gentlest, loving expansion in that way of trillions, quadrillions of particles. And the particles was gold, and the places and spaces between and around all of the particles was a darkish, blackish color. And I distinctively saw these two colors and saw all these different particles, and had a sense that it was simultaneously to the front, side, sides, and back, up and down, this whole field that has appeared there. And I remember looking at all these different particles, very curious, what am I experiencing? And quickly opened my eyes to see what was going on, because I couldn't feel or see my physical body within me. I just saw all these particles. And I opened my eyes and I looked at my arms and I saw, no, I'm here. I'm here, it's okay. And I quickly closed my eyes again so that I can just stay in that experience. And it also felt like, because of that experience, it felt like different particles of the sun. I distinctively remember, wow, am I in the sun? But there was no heat. It was just this awareness. It wasn't even warm. It was just normal temperature. And it lasted for, I reckon, about 20 minutes, although it felt like an eternity. And I just wanted to stay there. It was so peaceful and felt so loving. And I was so aware that it felt like a holding me. I felt so held and loved. And at some stage, around 20 minutes or so, I just felt how all those particles, it almost felt like it came together like this. And I was very aware that my physical body was being experienced again. I could feel and see that. And I opened my eyes and I closed it again in the hope that that experience will return, but it didn't. And I was very curious about that, but I had no idea what the experience was. But I loved that. And during the weeks and months that followed, I continuously waited for every Saturday to come so that I can go and sit there and have the very same experience. But that never happened again. And I'm going to leave the story for now there, because that never happened again. And then at the year after that, I met my husband and I moved to a very different city, where now I was surrounded by a garden and huge trees, and I felt so at home. And again, the words that wants to come up, felt hold and held in this very nurturing environment that I was living in with my husband, and simultaneously also experience the holding and the love from him, where for the first time in this life experience, I felt seen on a deep, in a soul level, as both of us recognized ourselves as souls. However, there was different experiences that we went through on our individual journeys. And why I'm saying is that love that I've experienced from him is different to that which I'm talking about now, the story of true love. And I'm also sharing that for a reason, because I know that in physical experience, there's many experiences of love that I have experienced. But if I now look at the difference between that love, so human to human love, if I can put it in those words, it almost feels like, if I can describe it, like all those trillions of particles that I've described, one of those can probably encapsulate human, unaware human love, whereas all the others together is true love. And as I continue to share, I will share with you how I came to that deep remembrance and realization of that being so for me. So coming back to the stage or phase in my unfolding of my ascension and embodiment, was towards the end of my relationship with my husband, which was a period of 18 years. There came a moment that became very significant in my embodiment, and that is when I passed away. And I've shared that previously on this channel, so I'm not going to share details about that. But what I want to share about the experience is that that moment has initiated me into an acceleration of my journey. And the acceleration was a few things. It was firstly about an experience that I had, which I'm going to share now briefly, and it was also the remembrance of different aspects of myself. It was also the remembrance of being a channel or a conduit or a messenger or an instrument or a gateway, any of those words. And it was also the deepening of a remembrance of who I truly am. And all of that started just after I passed away. So during my recovery and strengthening of all of my body, because I literally, after I came out of hospital, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move much. I had to stay in bed. So I had to learn, like a small little child, everything practically about being human. And upon reflection, knew that what that opportunity supported me with was to then started my embodiment. So now I learned how to sit, but as a human and soul integrated experience, and all the different walking, eating, bathing, all of that became that integration of my human and my divine expression, which was so beautiful, as that became the foundation of the strengthening of the embodied experience that I now continuously experience. So just after passing away and going through the recovery and could start walking again, I was one one morning sitting in my study on a chair. And this I've also shared previously, so I'm not going to share too much about it other than the key that I want to share in the unfolding of the knowing of being held. So I was sitting in the chair and I had the same experience of feeling, whew, the difference between what I've experienced in 2004, which felt like the particles of the sun, now felt like the light or the emanation or the field of the sun. And it was from my centeredness, from the heart of my being, I felt this, and it expanded out again, the same as with the particles, to about this space around my body, our auric field. So it was that whole field was just illuminated. It was radiating my light's essence, my soul's expression in this one field. And I was sitting in the center of this field, again, same distance in front of me, behind me, to the sides, above and below. And as I was sitting in the center, first of all, I received it's almost like a panoramic view of a vision that was fully and filled with this whole field. So in the front of me, I saw many things to the sides, behind, above, below. And I received this vision. And simultaneously in that experience, I also felt again this holding. And the holding was from and I'm going to use this language also for a reason, from a being or from a presence, soft, gentle, loving, enormous. But initially it also felt between mostly feminine, but some masculine expression, but as one being or one presence. And so initially it started small, and I just felt this, so this presence or being becoming huge, 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 huge. But what was so beautiful about that is while this expansion was occurring, this presence was becoming that size, I simultaneously felt also held and becoming also that size. And as that was occurring and that holding that I was experiencing in this light emanation, I remember distinctively, while I was wanting to, start looking around everywhere, I just heard, now just look down, continue to look down. You are still in the chair in the study. And now I know that so helped me to stay grounded in my physical expression, because I could see myself sitting in the chair, and simultaneously I just heard, look, there's Earth, and I saw the whole of Gaia, and then look, there's the Milky Way, and I saw the Milky Way, look, there's the galaxy, look, there's this universe, and then eventually it was this whole space, and I knew that was the whole cosmos that I was standing in with this presence. And now I know, as oneness with all that I am, in oneness with Creator, Creatrix, as one presence, the three of us. And now I also know that is when this Trinitized expression of my sharing started. It was in that moment, because there was this distinct feeling of a masculine energy, a feminine energy in the highest presence and expression, and me as one with that. And that Trinity is where the holding or the being held was also experienced in those three fields or three energies as one. And so the one source of light and the one source of love and the one source of all light. Because it was this whole field and it always felt like one field. And in that, sorry, and as we were standing like that, again, same with the particles in 2004, now I started to feel the field coming back. And then it just felt like me again, only my physical silhouette sitting there. And I couldn't feel that present distinctively in that moment. But now I know it was always there all along. But in that moment, I just felt my human self. And as I opened my eyes, I also received the guidance to put that whole vision that I've seen on paper. And I've done that with little dots. And now I know it's all those particles of 2004 that I now saw in this field. The particles was the vision. And those particles, I've put them on the paper and it formed this outline of a person or a being or a presence, because that's how my soul experienced it and remembered that vision of my being. And I was distinctively aware that every time when I did something specifically, I used different colors of cookies as I did that. And I didn't think much while I was doing that. I just knew that what I was seeing needed to be on that paper so that I don't forget the experience, because I was at that moment still very much aware that I couldn't remember anything after the 2004 experience. And this time I just knew I don't want to forget anything about what I've seen, and put it all on paper. And in the middle, there was in the inside of the presence, there was this landscape, which I now refer to my soulscape, or my inner nature, my inner beingness, all within that presence depicted there, but depicted as different crystals. At the bottom was many crystals, because I've seen the whole vision of what I've received was all in crystal, but in liquid crystal, almost like plasma, a little bit thicker than water. And then when I saw water, I knew there was a difference between that water and the crystalline crystals that I saw, but also the different homes that I was seeing was built out of crystalline bricks. So I drew all of that, or made the dots, and the inside, so it was crystals, a lot of minerals, and either depicted the movement of wind and the water, fountain, river, ocean, then animals in the water sources, animals on the land, on the mountains, the hills. And then I also drew little homes with the people, because I also saw a lot of people in that vision. And then what I also drew was this water flowing through this area into the heart. Now I know that is the golden living liquid essence that moves through continuously, always have, always will, eternity. So, but at that stage, my remembrance wasn't at a place where I knew that. I just saw and experienced that. And then around the head of the presence, there was this distinctive indication of the different stars and planets and the galaxy in the universe, so that all of that was on that picture. And then I left that. And then for the next 2 years, very gradually, and what I'm going to share now is very important, because at the beginning, I didn't consciously know that was the vision of my being here. that is the cosmic codex of my being, that those were the different codes that I was receiving. I didn't know that initially. Now I'm very aware of what actually occurred in that moment of receiving this vision in this field, and then also of the particles. The particles was actually already the codes that was now, so it almost feels like the particles is this particles through which creation are created from. So there's this boundless particles that is throughout the whole cosmos. And then the field felt like this light, as I said, this living light emanation. And that is like, it's almost this bountiful field of creation. And then this particles and the field together is how the weaving of our different codes through our light emanation of the soul of who we are, our higher soul's expression, those two weaves together through the very in and out breath that we take in every moment. And I started seeing that afterwards, how that started weaving together. But what I want to share now is the 2 years after that, I started, remember, I didn't know it at the time. I only know that now. And that is really what I want to ground here, is there's such beauty. There's such beauty in the perfection of the unfolding of our remembrance. So I've in this field and that vision that I've seen, over the next 2 years, it felt like parts of the vision came alive. And so let me give you an example, one or two examples. And I'm not going to share more than that, or else I need to, share all the different aspects of the vision. But I just want to ground the key code around the different aspects of how our keys and the codes that we have comes alive, and how that coming alive is gradually shown to us, and how that then is integrated through our very crystalline architecture, the very codes of our innate nature comes alive in that way. So, for example, the one day, and these visions that came alive gradually over a period of 2 years happened every morning when I went to sit in my study again, and I connected to that visionary field. So I had to practice over a period how to become still, how to connect with through my heart, how to connect into that field. And I also initially I wanted to, became curious, what was this about? But it was soon that I realized, no, it's not me, Surit, wanting to understand those different aspects. I gradually started, as I softened into this whole period of being shown the coming alive of all the different codes. When I softened into the whole experience was when one day I just wanted to give up. I thought, but why am I not connecting to? I want to know now this part of the vision, or this part, or this part. And at some stage I thought, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And in that moment where I just, it's almost, I suppose that's what it means, is surrendering. I just thought, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And just in that moment, all of a sudden, I saw myself, as I did in the vision, sitting on the edge of a mountain with my feet hanging down like this. And here was the whole ocean, sitting at the edge of the mountain. And all of a sudden, next to me is this huge lion, about this size, if I can show, about this size, sitting here next to me on the edge of the mountain. And I looked and I was very aware that we started to have a conversation. But I looked forward after, and it was a male line. He looked at me, I looked at him. And when that connection happened, I looked in front of me and we started to talk. And literally, what do you want to ask me? And I started asking questions. Why are you here? What do you want to tell me? And we started a relationship, and over a period, every morning, shared with me just enough for my human expression to integrate the very codes of the conversation that I was receiving that has allowed for that very codes that was grounded to come alive, so that I can remember just enough. And that for me is what true integration is seeing and receiving through hearing, experiencing in that moment through the conversation, just enough to process physically and to integrate that aspect within my being. And that is when I started to feel how physical expression and soul's expression, our divine nature, and the visionary expression of that, our higher self, if I can use that language, that higher self of us, our soul, who is here within us, have been there all along, start sharing with us that which we need to become aware of, to not only allow for that aspect of the code to come alive, but gradually all the different codes coming into being. And just enough for it to be seen, known, experienced, understood on a human level, and our divine and our human nature start weaving together as that aspect, that divine aspect become one with our human expression in the knowing of that code coming alive, and all the different codes eventually starts weaving and breathing together. And what's also important is there's not a knowing from a human perspective how that unfolding is going to be like. But there is this wisdom of our soul that knows exactly which next part to show, which next part to show, which next part to show for all the different aspects. So that is what true dimensionality is. When we speak about our multidimensional nature, it is that. It is all those different aspects, the different dimensions, and the multitude of that, our multidimensionality of the very soul's expression of who we are. Those aspects start showing, or being shown by ourselves for our human expression to see, hear, know, understand, integrate. And then what also then occurred is for the rest of that day, I was so focused on that part of the vision coming alive, those codes, that then was woven into my daily living continuously over that 2-year period, all the different aspects. And at some stage, after a beautiful, loving, continuous relationship with this lion, who I then also at some stage met the feminine expression and also different cubs. But at this one day specifically, he said to me, "You are ready, let's go for a walk." And there we walked. And I was saying to him, remember now we already had a very, very deep relationship, showed me so much of the different aspects of my vision. And just to be clear, he is one of many of the examples, because remember, all those different codes in the vision of my being, all of them is different expressions. So what I'm sharing about my relationship with this lion, the same occurred with crystalline beings. And I will share one example of that, but the same is true for all the different humans or other beings in that vision, and the homes and the plants, the trees, all the minerals, all the elements, all of those codes were at some moment during that 2-3 year period being in a conversation with, to understand that part of the vision. And gradually all of that started to come together in the multidimensional nature of it throughout the being of my soul's expression. So that one day, so we were walking, and I was saying to him, but we are walking on a ray of sun. And he said, yes. And yeah, we were walking on a ray of the sun. I said, I said, but we are walking towards the center of the sun. He said, yes, just continue to walk. And I walked, we walked. And the next thing, I feel myself entering into the sun. And my first words was, but it's not warm here. He said, yeah, no, it's not warm here. Feel how you are feeling. So I was it almost felt immersed in this, which now also I know is this plasma crystalline liquid essence of the sun. It felt like my soul's expression and the sun, the liquid nature of the essence and scent of the sun became one. I remember also looking down and I'm thinking, I'm not seeing my soul, I'm seeing the sun, yet I'm seeing some expression of me. And we were standing in the center, and then he just said, look out in that direction. And as I did, he said, look how far the sun ray goes there, and look how it's shining there on that dolphin. Look how it's shining there on that island there. Look how it's shining there on that waterfall. Look how it's shining down on that home there, on that person. And all the different aspects of that vision that I've received, I could see how all the different rays of sun was shining onto each one of those. And I said, yes, these rays of the sun are simultaneously and continuously emanating out from the center of the sun in all dimensional directions. And it is flowing to and through all of the vision that was alive in that field of mine. And that was what I grounded there that moment, in that experience of that in conversation with the lion. And now I just remembered, and what I'm hearing now is, and each one of those particles in 2004 that I've experienced was also in their liquid nature and their liquid particle expression in the center of what I've seen as the sun, or been in the center of the sun and all the different rays. And he also said, just walk a little bit forward, backwards, to get a feel of how I could walk in the sun. And I remember it's not just a flat forward like this or sideways, also up like that. And so that the depth was experienced there. And then we walked back, and as we were sitting on the edge of the mountain again, his first question was, so what are you experiencing inside of you right now? And I said, oh, but the whole sun is within me. And I looked up and said, but there's the sun still there. And the words then was, yes, so is everything that you are seeing right now. So this whole vision that I was sitting in was simultaneously in the center of my being, but also a reflection out towards all that I was seeing in my field. So this whole vision within my field, this panoramic view that is alive within this field, was simultaneously in the center of my being and all around me reflected out like the rays of the sun. And that is when I really started to get the feel of what multidimensionality is, what it means to receive a vision, and that then all these different places in the vision, those different mornings that I connected to parts of it, was small little vision experiences, but a part of a code in the original big vision coming into being in the vision, coming alive, being grounded and anchored through me, and all the different codes related to that part that came alive gradually over 2-3 year period. And that is also where I started to experience, distinctively started to experience the knowing of self, Suret self, my soul's expression and the vision of my soul, and then this presence or being that I expanded out to with the vision as this one huge cosmic being or presence. And that is the source of all of. So that was the Trinitized expression, the experience of that as self, soul vision, and source as one. The same as what I've explained earlier about experiencing my soul self in oneness with my masculine and feminine presence. But our cosmic mother, cosmic father, creator, creatrix, child. And that trinity is what I started to realize then over that period. The self, soul, source, trinitized expression, and then self as cosmic mother, cosmic father, cosmic child. So that trinitized remembrance came only after all those moments of connecting to parts of my vision. Eventually all of my vision was coming into, coming alive within me through conversation and remembrance and the depths of all the dimensional expressions of that. Only after that is when I started to experience cosmic mother, cosmic father, cosmic child as a trinitized expression, because at that stage I started to realize, okay, because now I've been long enough on this path to consciously know that I'm in the process not only of ascending, knowing myself as a divine cosmic being of light, not only am I descending into that knowing, but also gradually experiencing the embodiment of that code through me. And why I'm bringing that in now is there was a moment of deep remembrance over this last year specifically, where I remembered, but I am not my body. This physical body is just, if I say just, I say it with the greatest honoring of the experience of having a body, and I will share briefly about that. But this body is the very vehicle or stargate or channel or conduit or vessel or instrument through which our cosmic body or our cosmic nature or our cosmic codex can shine through, because we are cosmic beings of light in eternal oneness with our source of all light, all life, and all love, which is our creator, creatrix, and all of creation as one trinitized field, cosmic heart field of creation. That is who all of us are. And we all share that presence or being, our true cosmic nature. We all share that. And if I say we all share that, what I mean by that is all of creation shares that, because ultimately there's one cosmic womb or heart womb or heart field. It's one trinitized cosmic field through which all light comes into being or are birthed or are created. And from that light, all life is coming into expression, all expressions of life. So it's this living light field that gives expression to all expressions of creation, which is all elements, all minerals, all crystals, all animals, all plants, all humans, all stars, all planets, all galaxies, and all universes are the very expressions of this one source of all light and all life and all love, because love is woven through all of that. And that became a knowing for me through every phase or stage or process or initiation that I've walked through, lived through, experienced, been shown. Every one of those phases, there was this distinctive feeling of being held. And that holding deepened and deepened and deepened in every moment of realizing and remembering something different, something new, a new aspect of my multidimensionality, a new aspect of being an expression of all plants, a new aspect of being an expression of all animals, or reflection of all crystals and minerals, and then stars. And that whole trinitized expression and experience of this one field was because of that visionary field, and the experience of that living particles was because of the experience of that particle's expression in 2004. And then when I started to realize it's all one field, I started to see how that light field and particles started to weave together through all this coming alive of these different visions that I experienced and were shown with the lion, for example, for one example. And then these cosmic beings, just to share another example, just to really ground the nature of our coming alive of our visions and our vision or mission for being here, or our reason or purpose for being here and experiencing this. More importantly, that's where I'm coming to. Why all these experiences? But before I share that, that was also one of my first experiences. I was standing in this living waters, and it felt like plasma water, because I distinctively also have been in water in this vision, and that was a specific texture. And then I started experiencing bodies of water that didn't feel like water. It was a little bit more thick than water, so almost plasma-like. It's the only word I can give to it. But now I know that is crystalline, liquid, living light. And I've initially saw that as almost like a dam of water, a body of water. And I was just walking into the water, and in front of me was this being, like like a human body standing there. but I didn't experience a human expression. It felt like a plasma being, and then I knew it was a crystalline being. Again, it was just this loving presence, same height than me standing there and seeing this being. And then a few others appeared, and we started having conversations again. My first was, who are you? Why are you here? You know, and again, same with the lion, started having different experiences. And those beings, first thing I want to share is that now I know that was not different beings from anywhere else other than a reflection of myself for myself, so that I, as a soul, that is a soul's expression, can show and acclimate my physical self to know when I'm seeing what in my vision, what that looks like, sound like, feel like, and are experienced as within, so that not only I receive the codes through the conversation, but also allowing to receive just enough to be integrated, understood, and that light vibrational frequency in the bandwidth of that, for example, crystalline experience. And the same is true for all other expressions in the vision. The lion, the plants, the trees, the mountains, the crystals, all of that. Just enough received for my light quotient of my crystalline light body to not only weave through, but also bring those codes alive, and then to ground the codes of that into the greater field of creation. And why I'm sharing it in that way, but perhaps before I say why I'm sharing that, so this, just as with the lion, I started seeing these crystalline beings very often in the mornings, but not one morning after the other. It will be one morning, and then about 3-4 days afterwards, that morning, I will see the crystalline beings again. And maybe on the second day, see the lion again. On the third day, seeing this. So it was every time some other expression. And now I know it is the vibrational frequency of the field of that which I was experiencing, and the codes that comes from that. Those different vibrations has gradually woven through and into my light body to ground the codes within the very earthly architecture, my true earth expression of the field of my being. So gradually I've been shown over periods the crystalline nature of my being, of all beings. Now I know it's of all beings, all humans, animals, plants, crystals, minerals, all are in their crystalline nature. And at that stage, it was liquid crystalline bricks, as I said earlier, that the houses are built from. And I saw there's also huge cathedrals, and all of them was also crystalline. They built from crystalline bricks, but those cathedrals bricks were different than that from houses. It wasn't bricks like that. It was this it's almost like cunt. What's cunt in English? It's there's a piece of cunt here. It almost the cathedrals look almost like this. This texture was the walls from this It's like Kant. So the walls of the cathedrals was from this, and all around and up. So I think enough shared about that. All the different aspects in my vision became alive when I engaged with and were in conversation with each one of those. So what I want to ground now is the importance of the perfection of the unfolding to receive just enough codes to be woven through our crystalline light bodies so that we gradually, over periods, can strengthen in the embodied nature of why we are here. And also then, I'm jumping perhaps a bit, but it all comes together. So about a year ago, I started being made aware again, or remember deeply, more deeply again, that initially I started having this awareness of all the different cells in my physical body, that there are 74 trillion cells, and that I'm simultaneously everything that I'm seeing in this visionary field, everything I'm seeing and experiencing, I started seeing those visions in the center of each one of my cells, all of my cells within my body. And initially, I didn't know what that was, but there was this awareness of all the cells in my body. And it was only this last year when I was guided to start sharing some meditations or some not meditations, is walking through the visionary landscape of that which I've experienced. Those sharings that I've done, I started to share around standing in the center of each one of our cells. And I heard myself starting to share in that way. And I just thought, okay, it's connected to initially being made aware of all the 74 trillion cells within our bodies. But what I started to remember more deeply is two things that is very important to ground you now. Firstly, is that all of us that is currently here on Earth as the cosmic beings of light that we are in different stages of remembering why we are here through receiving the vision of the remembrance of why we are here. So that vision that I've put on paper, everybody at some stage are receiving a clear vision for their reason for being here. So that is the very first code. That vision has always meant to be seen, understood, known, experienced, recognized, and remembered in perfect sequential unfolding of that for the gradual integration of the codes. And through doing so, every experience of that grounds those codes through us. So that is the one code. The second code is that all of that has always been with us since the moment our soul has been conceived as an expression of our cosmic nature. So that moment when the cosmos was created, all beings have received already the vision of being created. And that initial vision of the whole cosmos and your soul's remembrance of that is occurring during this period of us being here has always been part of you as a soul, that has always been here in this present now moment, and have always been shining throughout the whole cosmos. It's always already been that. What is occurring now is everybody is remembering the fullness and the wholeness of that through being in form and emanating through a form, a human form. And then within this human form, where this vision is emanating from the center of our crystalline heart, that emanation is encoded within the crystalline chromosomes of our humanly body. And therefore, it is not to be searched for outside of us. It is inherently interwoven through our current physicalized expression within the crystalline chromosomes of our being, and therefore our reason for being here is being shown to us gradually, continuously. That initial vision of creating the cosmos through our reflection. So that's the second key that I'm grounding. And then this deepening of this knowing happened over this last month, specifically, where I saw how the center of each one of my cells, if I say my cells, this physical body's cells, how each one of the centers of my cells has gradually grounded a different aspect of that vision and all the different codes that was on that paper. And in the center of each one of the cells that was grounded, and therefore my crystalline light body, or my cosmic architecture, or my true earth expression in my oneness with, has just came alive or came into being or came into reflection through the deepening of the remembrance. So first of all, through the cellular remembrance. Then secondly, I started seeing this toric fields. So this, I actually got, when I grounded the last part of it, I actually saw this one day and I got that. So this is, it's our light body structure almost in its toric expression. This toric field is one cosmic toric field, and all that this is to depict a symbol of the symmetry of how our light weaves and breathes through our physical beings through this toric flow of life-giving energy. And that's why I started bringing that in again when I started doing my sharings, that I walk through the visionary landscape or the meditation that just flows through me. Because I started hearing myself talking about my cell, the 74 trillion cells, and grounding in the center of each cells. And then I started to see all these different toric fields around my cells, and started to ground that through my expression. And so that's the toric fields. So that I also started to see secondly. Then thirdly, this was about 6-7 months ago. I woke one morning with this distinct feeling that there's this magnet around my heart, my physical heart, and my energetic heart as one. And I felt this magnet, it felt like a magnet, literally like this. And I got the magnet here because as I awoke, so I felt that, and I opened my eyes and I thought, what am I feeling right now? And I kept on feeling this magnet. And I got up straight, I got out of bed, and I walked to these two magnets. And so when you know, the two opposite sides attract, so they are together like this. But if you turn this one around, so I did that, and I felt myself turning this one around, and you bring this two together. And if you, it's a very beautiful experience to experience this. So if you can get two magnets and feel this, if you haven't felt this before, it will really be a good experience. Because when I felt that, if you go like this, if you hold two magnets together, there's a field in the center that is formed. And that feeling there in the center, in this field, is what I felt around my heart. So that's why I received the guidance to do this, to know that was a magnetic field around my heart that I physically started to experience. And it was this feeling. And I played with it a while like this. And I remember I've put it down. And even now, when I do this, I can feel that magnetic field between my hands. And that is what I was starting to feel around my heart. And then when I connected to that again, day after that, I realized, but this is staying here. It is not going away like those particles did in 2004 or that field did in 2020, 21. This is starting to stay here. And that felt so good. And then when I started to feel this, the very first word that came to me was sovereign magnetism. Our souls, and if I say that, I just feel how my whole being lights up. Is that the very magnetism of our soul, our oneness with our self, soul, source, connectedness, that trinitized oneness, that's our sovereign magnetism, that cosmic field of light is the sovereign magnetism that we are as cosmic beings of light, that we are as souls, that we are as in our oneness with source. Continuously, and why I'm sharing this sovereign magnetism of the heart and our soul's essence is, firstly, I heard that our soul's essence is in the center of our heart, and our trinitized expression is when our highest nature of who we know ourselves to be and are continually to deepen in our remembrance of that. That magnetism is what magnetized all hearts together, because at some stage I started also to share the center of our hearts, the center of Gaia's hearts, the center of the cosmos. And that trinitized magnetism becomes one. And as soon as I started grounding that, I started to feel this holding, and that it deepened again, the deepening of the holding, being held through our very soul's source, self synthesis, magnetizing all the hearts as one cosmic heart, weaving and breathing as one trinitized expression. And then I started seeing the soul's essence and the magnetism of that in the center of my Gaia and the cosmic heart as one. started seeing that in the center of each one of my 74 trillion cells had the same experience of this magnets around my heart, now started being in the center of each one of my cells, and the same experience. And that is when I started to experience myself merging with Gaia. As I connected more and more, not only through my magnetism that I started to experience, but connecting with her, his crystalline essence or heart of Gaia. And not as something separate, because then I started to remember this walking out to the sun. And then I also hear a lot of people saying going down out through your root to the center of the earth, but I never experienced it like that. It always felt a little bit uncomfortable for me. I always connected immediately with the center of Gaia. So at this stage, after the sovereign magnetism experience, or the magnet around my heart, and then I started feeling the same magnet around Gaia's heart, and the crystalline magnetic essence of Gaia's being. And that started to become one. And I started to see then how each one of my 74 trillion cells also became the different aspects within Gaia's body. And at some stage, I couldn't differentiate between which is mine, which is Gaia's body. It started to feel as one body. And then I realized and remembered, but we are all expressions of our very organic nature, or the earthing, as many refer to it. The earth of our being is an expression of our organic nature, and all life that comes into form. Remember that trinitized field, cosmic field of creation, which we are eternally all one with, always have, always will be, because it's one cosmic being or body, and a sovereign nature of that. That's why we are all sovereign and equal in our knowingness of that and the remembrance of the depths of that. All the life that comes into form can do so through the very body of Gaia. All minerals, crystals, plants, human bodies, and then that reflecting out into our celestial bodies through the stars and the planets, weaving the light through, because that is what I started to see next, how each one of the stars and all the different planets, just like as I walked out to the sun, none of that is outside of us. I also started to experience that within me. And that visionary landscape that I shared with the line and the crystalline beings and the trees and all of that, the crystals, the minerals, all the different stones and all of that I've been seeing within the vision, and all the different stars and planets, I started realizing, but all of that is within this physical landscape, but as a soul's expression. And then I started receiving more and more clarity around how our soul's essence is literally becoming, or have been always, where we are in every new now moment. Because that's where our energy is. That's why where our attention is, where our focus is. To be this living liquid soul, self, soul sourced synthesis essence of this very visionary expression that we gradually are embodying. Firstly, and then secondly, through doing so, we are not only grounding the very cosmic codex, or the living codes and keys of our being that is in our crystalline light body architecture, and grounded and coming into life and light and emanating out. Not only are we grounding that through this experience of that, but we are also, through doing so, grounding an aspect of the cosmos, so that all of us together are collectively grounding the one cosmic body, or the one cosmic home, into being, for it to be a physicalized expression and experience through all aspects of creation, so that all other humans, animals, plants, crystals, minerals, stars, planets, galaxies can not only experience it for themselves, but also remember that they are a reflection of that too. And all of us together are reflecting our individual expression in the full knowing that we are the collective emanation of that, and grounding that in the center of all centers, of all cells, and all aspects of Gaia, and all aspects of the galaxy and solar system. Because indeed, all that are being reflected out in their crystalline organic nature is all within the living liquid essence and codes of our being and our reason for being here, to experience and know and remember the depth of that for ourselves. And having said that, we all started to flow together. That which I've just shared happened was when two significant realizations occurred over this last few months. Two significant realizations. The first one is that there was this, and it was just a moment of seeing that and therefore knowing that. And that was when I experienced and saw, as I saw the particles initially in 2004, the visionary field in 2020, particles of creation, field of creation. And then I started this last third part. I started seeing how each one of those codes that was in this visionary landscape was starting to weave as light strands through the center of each one of my cells, this visionary landscape into form. So a particle of light became a light strand, and it was weaving all the cells together. The gradual embodiment became that realization, and as that weaving continued and concluded, this liquid living light essence that was always only in the center of my heart felt like it expanded out to now being the very full body living liquid essence of this physicalized expression. So where the rays usually shined out from here, it's now shining out from here. And as I was experiencing and seeing that, integrating the particles and the particles of creation, the fields of creation, and all the different toric fields and all the different cells weaving and breathing together as light strands, and the completion of the light body architecture and the cosmology of that, together with the body of Gaia, together with all the celestial bodies, together with the whole cosmic body. When I saw all of that shown, how it all weaves together, all the different aspects, I simultaneously saw the expansion out of that, just like that initial one with particles and then one with the field, but now saw it all as particles and fields weaved as one body of light. And again, where the story of true love was experienced was in that moment when I remembered that every one of those, this is the lion, this is the crystalline being, this is this plant, this is this animal, this is this mineral, this is this galaxy, this is the sun, this is the moon, this is this planet, this is this galaxy. All of those that I've seen was always myself showing it to me all along. And if I say myself showing to me, what I mean by myself is my oneness with our creator, creatrix, and the whole of creation. That oneness I have all along, since the moment of creation and the original intention for creation of the cosmos. All of that have been shown to me by myself as this oneness all along. And when I saw that, I just started to cry, and I felt the deepest levels, layers of all fields, all particles, brrr, like this, and then brrr, out like that. And I felt held in each one of those particles and each one of those fields as one holding. And I just went like this, and I thought, oh, this is true love, being held so wholeheartedly, all hearts of creation, weaving and breathing as one, being loved so deeply through all levels, layers of all expressions of creation throughout the whole cosmos, and being loved so dearly that regardless of all the different emotional, mental beliefs, constructs, identities, roles, stories, storylines, epochs, all of that, thinking of being any and all of that, or experiencing it so fully that I'm thinking and feeling that, the loving is so deep that through all of that, and regardless of how angry or frustrated I was during any of the phases of the embodiment process, continue to experience the love of the oneness of it all, regardless of all those emotions that has been, you know, I don't even have the language anymore, dissolved, that has gradually dissolved, not because I told them to be dissolved, because through every experience of remembering where the visionary landscape came alive and the codes of that had simultaneously in that moment dissolved that which was not in alignment or in harmony, in balance or coherence with that all along. So gradually all came into balance, all came into harmony, and all came into coherence as it all unfolded, as I continued to expand, as I continued to remember. And why I'm saying as I continue to remember, expand, evolve, etc., it comes from a place of knowing, through doing so, not only grounding that, but also that all are experiencing that too in their own unique way, as guided by their highest expression and remembrance of it all. Always have all through their direct source connection, through the source of all that is, and the vision that of creation for being a soul in the first place. That soul's expression of the knowing of who you are and have always been. You know that you've always been guided, supported, loved, and held by all of you all along too. And the knowing of that all are exactly in the perfect moment of remembrance of that, and the depths of that remembrance, of the holding and the knowing of what true love is, will be in the perfect moment of the experience of that, for all the different integration and synthesis to occur in the perfect moments, so that the whole multidimensional nature of our cosmic beingness can flow through and be experienced in the most perfect and beautiful ways, eternally so. And there's depths of the love and of being held so deeply, and that I've been held, and all of us have been held all along. That is the story of true love, and the true story of love. That we are love, we are loved, and we are loving all of the time, eternally so, in our oneness, with our cosmic mother, our cosmic father, the cosmic child, creator, creatrix, creation as one, love, and one holding. And as I experienced that, in that moment, I saw how the one, throughout this whole journey, so just to move to conclusion, throughout this whole journey, all the different expressions of the vision, from crystals, minerals, animals, plants, stars, planets, galaxies, elements, and the elemental properties of all of creation. Together with all of that, there was always also different symbols. And when I experienced this last symbol, just to share one example of symbol, because there's many symbols, one of which is also this, the seed of life, the flower of life, the fruit of life, the tree of life. All is symbols, but the truth of the reflection of that in your beingness and the knowing of that, it is not like it's written in any records. It is something to be experienced, to know for self, and the guidance of your soul showing you through the symbol, not so that we connect to the things that was connected to symbols. No, just to show an aspect of, just like the toric field, it's a symbol. It's a symbol. If you look like this, see this, even that, you'll see this. It's all symbolic ways in which our soul communicates through, so that our human expression can gradually remember the soul that's housed within, and the oneness of our source connection through all of that. So the one symbol that brought all of this together is a symbol that's well known, that I've seen over periods many, many, many times. And I've always been connected to it. My husband even had a tattoo of that symbol on him, and that's the yin yang. But his yin yang was two fishes, the one fish flowing, in each other like this, the yin yang. And we also one day went to a nursery, a plant nursery, and we saw the stone of two stones, but one forming one of yin yang, a lighter and a darker stone. And with the two circles, this was this, how do you show this? it's this form with a circle there, and then this form this way with the circle there. So this stone is laying here beneath this tree, there on the floor, on the ground. I brought that with me. And so this last, I would say about 4 weeks ago, one morning, I just saw this yin yang. And through that symbol, I saw how, if you look on a screen or on paper, if you print a picture of yin yang, it's flat like this, like this. So I saw this yin yang in front of me, and then all of a sudden I saw the yin yang not in that 2 dimensions, but in this multi-dimensional way, opening up, whoops, like a sphere, almost like this, like a round, but yin yang. So like this, but the yin yang in a round sphere. And I saw this yin yang, but if you look at the yin yang, like, I don't know how to show it now, like this, I saw how those two circles that's there and this side moved to like this. One was at the top and one was at the bottom. And as I saw that moving, like, so not like this, it moved like this, I all of a sudden saw how the circle of the yin side and the circle of the yang side started to show how the flow of energy flows in through that yin, and at the bottom flows out like the yang in this way. So the one circle at the top here and the one circle at the bottom here, and flowing in like that, and simultaneously out through here and in through that side. And then I knew that is why I was starting to see how all the different cells and the crown and the root of every cell, I started to see as circles at some stage. I started to see them in this way, but at the top like this, and at the bottom of the root also like that. And I started to ground that through this visionary landscapes that I share. And then I started to see all of a sudden that that is at the crown and the root of my heart, the crown and the root of my body, the crown and the root of Gaia's heart, the crown and the root of Gaia's body, the North and the South Pole. The same I saw with the galaxy, the same I saw with the universe, and the same I saw throughout the whole cosmos. So I've been starting to see that over this last few months. And then I started to see how every one of our 74 trillion cells also had this crown and the root and the circles there. And when I saw this yin yang, I saw this one cosmic toroidal field with the energy moving in, then through the center or through the core or through the essence or through the pillar, out through the root and in again. And this way around, and this way around. And then I saw, but they starting flowing like this and circulating very organically, forward, backward, So when I saw that yin-yang sphere in all its dimensional nature with the two crown root like this, simultaneously I saw, whoops, that happening, where the root became the crown became the root, and that circulation. And I was standing in the center looking at this, and I just heard the root in the crown is the same entrance of the energetic field of the circulation of the life-giving energy that is magnetized from the center of our being, center of Gaia's being, center of the solar system, center of the galaxy, center of the universe, center of the cosmos, as one center. So the center of all centers, and the sovereign magnetism around that center is allowing for the organic flow and circulation of this life-giving energy to move through all fields, particles as light strands weaving and breathing our crystalline cosmic codex into being through our grounding of the expression and the experience of that. And as I saw that, I also saw how all cells in humans, animals, plants, crystals, stars, planets, all those fields, like the 74 trillion cells, weaving and breathing the toroidal fields, forming organs, heart, lungs, and all that forming toroidal fields, forming one body toroidal field. And the same then for, all aspects of creation. And as I saw that, I also saw then how all the different expressions of creation as one cosmic body. And again, I went back to that first initial presence. I am presence. I'm one being of cosmic light. And that I is I in oneness with creator, creatrix, creation as one. Living, liquid, light, essence, and emanation. Luminosity, radiance of the sovereign light of our being, weaving and breathing in the perfect moment all of our soul's expression, each one of us as humans, all the different plants, animals, crystals, minerals, solar system, galaxy, as one universe. And now that all of that have been experienced, shared, grounded, integrated as an experience in the body, we are all together co-creating from this living love, the true story of love, new ways of being, living, experiencing, relating, being in relationship, being in community, all co-creating that together from this very essence, which is sovereign, crystalline, pristine, majestic, innocent, pure, crystalline love, true love. In our continuous, eternal weaving and breathing as one. Cosmic mother, cosmic father, cosmic child, creator, creatrix, creation as one love. And grounding that here, the story of true love. And may all of us, in every new moment, in the perfect weaving and breathing all together, know the depth of this love for ourselves in all the different ways and expressions and experiences that we choose to have. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you dearly. I love you deeply. And I love you wholeheartedly. Much love.